This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country, and we join their calls for justice.
Yes, Queen. New ally just dropped. Yes.
Who?
Pauline Hanson.
What do you mean?
Comrade Hanson is joining the fight.
Oh, what's she done? She gay? She come out?
She could be a gay icon. Pauline Hanson, certainly a gay icon. And now
that's
maybe
true.
the real thing as well.
Okay.
In a surprising turn, One Nation leader Pauline Hanson slammed a Sydney Catholic school for banning students from bringing their same-sex partners to the Year 12 formal. Around 4,900 people signed a Change.org petition by Abby Franklin, a student of St Ursula's, Kingsgrove, New South Wales.
Ooh, St Ursula's.
Franklin was calling out the discrimination policy after she found out she could not take her girlfriend to the Year 12 formal. Hanson, who has a history of anti-LGBTQI statements, to put it mildly, voting against marriage equality and introducing anti-trans motions in Parliament, was an unlikely critic of the Catholic school's policy.
What?
I can't see any problem with it. I can't really
What
do it.
is that? I can't see
don't
any
like
problem
it.
with it.
I'm with it.
I
You're
can't
right,
see any
yeah.
problem with it. We've allowed same-sex marriage in Australia. That was vote. I can't do it either. Why can't I do it?
All I can say is I don't like it.
We've allowed same-sex marriage in Australia. That was voted on in a plebiscite by the Australian people. We actually see it on a daily basis on our TV programs we watch. It's a part of life. So I think to deny these two girls to go to the formal is ridiculous. How was that?
Slay Queen, yes! Yes!
And then she said, I think that St. Ursula's policy should sashay away.
What is this? Is she trying to shore up the queer vote or something? Like she trying to win them back after kicking out Mark Latham for being a homophobic piece
I
of
think
shit?
they are. Like, they're getting increasingly irrelevant. Maybe she's like, what if we, okay, hear me out. They're in the meeting and she's like, hear me out. I'm looking at our numbers and I'm seeing some potential growth areas. The
Gay
gays.
racist.
Thoughts?
That's what I want. We're going to go for the
racists,
all those people who
yes.
voted yes to marriage equality but voted
But
no to the voice.
voice.
We've really got to get them.
Yeah, actually. I mean, more people voted yes for marriage equality than no to the voice. So that's right. Maybe she's looking at that intersection and that is their new target demographic. We've cracked it.
Her chief of staff, James Ashby, is a gay man, and he's still she's stuck by him through thick and thin,
Thick and thin, to put it
alleged
mildly,
financial
and corruption scandals and
Yes, Pauline.
Yes.
Someone should do Pauline Hanson on Snatch Game on RuPaul's Drag Race. I think that would be
that would be good.
Talk about the Greens, that bunch of idiots.
ACT Greens leader Shane Rattenbury has called on the Prime Minister to enter into a formal coalition with the Greens. That would be scary, scary stuff.
We're stuck with the hosts of Chapo Shithouse podcast.
Serious danger to Australia.
Well, let's do a
Tom.
podcast.
I think I introduced this last time. You haven't done it for a while. Go on.
Hi, this is Serious Danger, a podcast about
Hi.
Greens politics in Australia. I'm Tom Ballard. I'm gay. It's Emerald
Hi,
Moon.
I'm Emerald Moon. This is not an official Greens Party podcast. It's made possible with the help of the Green Institute and produced by Michael the Griffin. I have a disclosure that I would like to make to our listeners that I don't think I've formally made yet, and I feel it's important for me to make this disclosure.
Uh-oh. You're gay?
I'm no longer a renter. I, with the very generous help of a family member, am now the owner of a little unit, which means we have no renter representation on this podcast except for Mike as our producer. So Mike will be holding us to account, checking our homeowner bias. But I thought it's relevant given that, what we're going to be talking about this week. We're talking to also another homeowner, Jordie Van Der Berg, aka Purplepingers, who does the shit rentals TikTok reviews and also just launched the shitrentals.org website about shit rentals. And we're also, before that, we're checking in on the latest horrors coming out of Israel's war on Gaza and the West Bank and just the really shit-ass fucking cowardly responses to it from the West.
Cowards!
They sure
From
are.
the West, including goddamn Australia.
Oh, yeah, very much Australia.
Worst responses and moves I've seen thus far.
Yeah.
We want to say a huge thank you to people who support the show via Patreon. Patreon.com/SeriousDangerAU. For just $3 a month, you can get all the bonus content. We record an extra episode of the podcast every fortnight. Some people pay more than $3 because they're very, very nice. And that just helps us cover the costs and doesn't go towards our mortgages, which we have.
No, it's not funding our mortgage. Don't worry.
Thank you to Riley, Ebony, Rohan, Daniel, Jellybean, Simon, Gil, and Daniel. Another Daniel. I think there's two of them. Thank you very much. Please support the show if you can. We appreciate it very much. Also, if you'll indulge me, cheeky Melbourne plug, I am MCing the Green Left Weekly comedy debate on Friday, November the 10th.
What are you debating?
Well, the topic is we should welcome our new AI overlords. I'm the MC. So
you're not for or against?
Yes, I'll just be hosting it, doing a few jokes.
Okay.
Crowbarring some existing material. I assume it's a clapometer or something. It's a bunch of socialists, so there'll be some long democratic process to argue.
They have to actually reach consensus.
Yes.
At the end of the debate.
But it's a fundraiser for the Green Left Weekly, who do fantastic work. Leftist, actually, one of the few independent leftist media outlets in this country. They do wonderful stuff. Great comedians on the bill. It should be a bunch of fun. If you're in Melbourne, Friday, November the 10th, please. We'll put the link for booking tickets into the show notes.
Or you could come to the Better Melbourne show, which is our live show on Saturday, November the 18th, celebrating 100 episodes. Check if there's still tickets available because they are actually selling fast. The link's all there at seriousdangerpod.com, and we'd love to have you there.
Selling like vegan hotcakes.
Sure.
That's the kind of comedy you'll be getting at the comedy debate.
But I can tell you that we are not targeting anyone else in Gaza but civilians. Hamas is cynically, but rather terrorists, of course.
All right, let's chat about what is happening in Gaza and the West Bank as Israel keeps doing its thing. As always, the disclaimer, this is being recorded on the morning of Friday. November the 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, things may well change by the time you hear this. But Jesus Christ, it's been a horrific week. As the past couple of weeks have been. The indiscriminate slaughter and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by Israel has been continuing the whole time. Right now, the Israel military has invaded Gaza. It's currently claiming to have Gaza City surrounded. And an IDF spokesman has said the prospect of a ceasefire is not on the table at all.
Great.
Not even on the table. Fantastic. So more killing to come. Gaza health authorities say Israel has killed at least 9,060 people in this siege thus far. That includes more than 3,700 children. That does not include the more than 100 people killed in the West Bank, as Palestinians there are facing increasing violence from settlers in the West Bank. They're illegally, of course, and they just hand out guns to settlers. They just hand out arms and everything. And we're just seeing, more than 1,000 people being kicked out, being forced to relocate out of their homes in the West Bank.
Yeah.
7 UN special rapporteurs said in a statement this week that the Palestinian people are at grave risk of genocide as fuel, drinking water, and medicine run out in the territory. Now, some people have certainly gone further than that and say that what we're witnessing is a genocide happening right now in real time. This week, there was an almost total communications blackout in Gaza, truly terrifying. The IDF were talking about invading, and then also all the internet shut down and all communications shut down, which must have been truly horrific.
Terrifying.
For people who have family members there.
Yeah.
Those are slowly coming back online now, I believe. But yes, real blackout that was horrific. We've seen journalists and their families being killed indiscriminately. And perhaps most egregiously, in the middle of this week, we saw Israel repeatedly bomb the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp, killing an estimated 195 Palestinians. The IDF said, no, this is fine and good because they killed a very senior Hamas commander in that area. Just one.
Even if true, just one. Yeah.
Hamas commander. That's still, the IDF says it's confirmed, but I don't know if it's still been confirmed. And of course, there was heaps of tunnels underneath this refugee camp that Hamas uses, and it's all military and legitimate.
And that justifies it. Did you see, I think Rachel Withers from the Monthly had posted, would the justification that there was this commander hiding or even just that in general Hamas was hiding in civilian areas in the US, would that justify bombing US civilian populations? Yes. And someone was like, what a ridiculous comparison. And it's like, why? Why exactly is that a ridiculous comparison? because
America.
Palestinian lives matter less to you than US lives, you know?
The ABC 7:30 had former Israeli PM Ehud Olmert on the show to discuss the attack.
Does Israel make a calculation as to how many innocents it's prepared to kill to take out one Hamas commander?
First of all, I'm not certain that so many innocent civilians were killed yesterday. It was headquarters of Hamas, and everyone present there was part of Hamas and the fighting group of Hamas. They were killed, but they were not innocent civilians to start with.
That's just a lie.
That's just a lie, and that's genocidal language. And this justification that, yes, anyone that dies is either supportive of Hamas, an actual Hamas operative, or Hamas is responsible for their deaths because they were using them as human shields as Israel just rains rocket fire down on these people on a fucking refugee camp, for God's sakes. The ABC then posted that clip to social media, no clarification or pushback, and they turned the comments off.
Yeah, cool, great. Love that our, publicly funded, taxpayer-funded fucking public broadcaster is doing that. And
you're seeing this, and when we talk about genocide language, like it's becoming so much more apparent because people will point to the fact that Palestinian people support in opinion polls Hamas, or like Hamas enjoys some support amongst Palestinian people as an example.
They don't have a government. They don't have a military.
They're the only people that sort of are doing anything about like trying to resist Hamas in some serious way, because all other avenues have been shut down, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And they use this as a justification, saying, well, no, these no one is innocent that are getting hit by these bombs because they all support Hamas, who want to wipe out the state of Israel and have no other ambitions or hopes for their future and for peace. We can just kill them all and it's all justified. There was a quote from a particularly, explicitly fascist member of the Knesset saying, the Palestinian children shouldn't have been born to terrorists, basically, sort of thing.
Right.
This is their fault.
Right.
This is your brain on Zionism. I would argue. Like, this is what happens.
Yeah.
Israel constantly claims to be warning people and telling people to move south to safety. People are doing that. And then, hey, guess what? They're still getting bombed and killed.
Yeah. The fucking gaslighting. Like, we tried. It's not our fault. Bullshit.
Have you been seeing anything else sort of come through this week, or feeling things, or what have you been seeing keeping an eye on this week?
Yeah, it's just bleak in general. I think one thing I found really interesting, I don't know if other people saw this doing the rounds this week. My friend Mitch, shout out Mitch, sent me a video by Richard Medhurst, who's an independent journalist, talking about like the economic drivers behind what Israel is doing in Gaza, and particularly like the gas drivers and how Israel has been trying to, I guess, systematically cut off other supplies of gas to Europe, Europe in particular experiencing gas shortage, as is the world, particularly following Russian invasion of Ukraine. And Israel in the last few years has been really trying to expand its presence in the global gas market, both for domestic use and for export. And there have been huge amounts of gas reserves identified in Gaza. And there'd been like some agreement with the Palestinian Authority to share profits from gas exploration and exports in the region. But it would be a whole lot better if they could literally just wipe out the entire Palestinian population, seize control entirely of Gaza, and exploit those gas reserves for their own benefit. And it seems as though, potentially part of the resistance, part of the attacks from Hamas may have been motivated by this economic conflict, and even the fact that one of the ports that's been affected or is on the coast of Israel that exports gas is part owned by Adani. The video makes the point that yes, this is ethnic cleansing and it is partially motivated by Israel being a racist state that believes that Palestinian lives matter less. But there are, as almost always, also these fucking evil economic capitalist drivers behind this kind of violence and, indiscriminate killing.
Jesus, one of the most maddening critiques or this suggestion that there's some quote of like, Palestine could have been the Hong Kong of the Middle East or something, or Singapore of the Middle East. Like they're like, hey, Israel withdrew, 15 years ago, and the Palestinians haven't done anything with Gaza, and like they haven't created or economically developed. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this complete ignorance and dismissal of the conditions under which people in Gaza and the West Bank live, and the idea that you can seriously judge or critique as if they were just. Israel just said, go for it, guys. Build up whatever kind of economic capacity that you want. We're cool with that as we blockade supplies and a whole bunch of things coming into this region, control basically your lives completely. But no, go for it. Develop it.
Yeah. I'm also
do some startups, Gaza. Come on.
Yeah. I'm also reading a book that I'd put on hold as a new book. I'd put on hold even before this all kicked off. But The Palestine Laboratory by Anthony Lowenstein, which, discusses a lot of the technologies, the ways that the state of Israel tests technologies of oppression and occupation in Palestine and then exports them to the world. And it really kind of lays bare the kind of conditions that Palestinian people live under, and the level of surveillance and oppression is just staggering. So those kinds of arguments are just so fucking disingenuous.
Yeah. There's a classic one there of people say, why are you always worried about Israel-Palestine? Like, shouldn't you be worried about, the racist police violence in America? And people go, the ADF literally trains American police officers
IDF,
with their tactics. IDF,
Yeah.
There was also an insane document that sort of came out this week. This document proposing moving Gaza's civilian population to tent cities in northern Sinai. Like, this is a plan to literally ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Yeah.
This came out through an unidentified humanitarian corridor. Details. But Netanyahu's office was like, oh, it's just hypothetical. We were just kicking around ideas. We were just
spitballing. We had some butcher paper out, and we were like, what if? What if we did a genocide? I'm just throwing things. Nothing. They were like nothing. No bad ideas. Everyone go for it.
There's also been rising social tensions across the world, and look, I mean, did you see this story about the Dagestan airport?
No.
This is in Russia. There's a mob of people running through the airport looking for passengers from a recent flight from Tel Aviv. Okay, and they were shouting just clearly anti-Semitic stuff, literally saying, "Where are the Jews? Where are the Jews?" It's horrific, and there's undoubtedly been anti-Semitic violence and anti-Semitic hate speech on the rise, as has there been Islamophobic bigotry. The smearing of anybody who attends a pro-Palestine march in solidarity with an oppressed people, anyone, this criminalization of phrases like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. The suggestion that waving a Palestine flag is anti-Semitic or somehow endorses Hamas or terrorism or anything, rather than just simply saying Palestinian people are human beings with rights and they deserve to live free and decent lives. And what is truly sick is using an example like what happened in that airport as this anti-Semitic incident as an example of, or as a justification for, a reinforcement of the state of Israel's war crimes against the people of Palestine in Gaza and the West Bank.
Yeah.
Don't worry though, the West is doing really good stuff to make sure that everything's going to be fine. Old grandpa President Joe Biden has suggested a humanitarian pause in the Gaza fighting to let in aid for Palestinians and let out more foreign nationals.
Isn't that exactly what did Penny Wong? Oh no, Monique Ryan said humanitarian pause.
This is the new phrase now. This is doing the rounds. Everyone loves a pause. Yeah. We're crazy about pauses.
Pause.
We love a humanitarian pause. Now, can we talk about how fucking insane this is?
What happens after the pause, guys?
A pause to bring in humanitarian aid that then ends, you resume the violence that requires more aid and medicine. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just a break in between the war crimes and the killing innocent people?
Yes, yeah.
Let's bomb a refugee camp.
Everyone needs to rest up.
Everyone's sending the Band-Aids. Okay, and then let's just bomb it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is Penny Wong also saying this?
They've basically called for a pause, yes, and this focus on securing the Rafah crossing to get people out of Gaza. There have been Australians evacuated out of Gaza, and there has been an increased level of humanitarian aid to Gaza. Again, whether or not you can actually get access to it is an open question. On Thursday, Foreign Minister Penny Wong said Israel must observe the rules of war, warning that the international community will not accept ongoing civilian deaths, which is like,
you are.
You currently are. You're currently accepting 9,000 deaths. So I don't know what figure you're after there, Penny, when you say, okay, that actually enough's enough. Very hard to tell.
Well, I mean, but thank God we've got Albo as PM, right? Because I've seen that speech that he gave about Palestine and, you know, how it must be free and all that, right? So he at least is fighting for Palestinian people and for this violence to end, I imagine. Nope.
Was he one of the founding members of Parliamentary Friends of Palestine?
Was he?
Was that the report?
I
I believe that's right. And
yeah.
again, I think Sky News was circulating footage this week of him at a pro-Palestine rally. Now, of course, Sky News presents that being like, look at this fucking crazy radical. He's a terrorist. What a terrible guy. You know, everyone on the left or progressive people who give a shit about Palestine are like, oh God, you used to be vaguely good.
Yeah.
Why isn't that guy prime minister? And I think someone commented, I saw like, oh, it's a shame this guy never became prime minister. Well, we don't give much of a shit in Australia, apparently. Australia abstained from voting on a call for an immediate humanitarian truce between Israeli forces and Hamas militants in Gaza at the UN General Assembly on Saturday. The non-binding resolution, why, to pave the way for a ceasefire passed, with 120 countries in support, 14 countries against, and 45 abstaining, including Australia. The US voted no, as did Israel. You'll be pleased to know. Australia's ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations, James Larson, told the Assembly Australia abstained with disappointment. Oh,
it's hard, disappointing.
The resolution did not recognise terror group Hamas as the perpetrator of the 7th October attack, and Australia again explicitly calls for the immediate and unconditional release of hostages.
So they're saying they would have supported it if it had also condemned Hamas, basically. Is that?
Yes.
For fuck's sake, get real.
I mean, I assume you can't call for the immediate and unconditional release of hostages and also call for a ceasefire in their brains, or they can't justify it from their point of view, because I guess they think that this indiscriminate bombing has really something to do with the release of the hostages.
Yeah,
we've seen negotiations in Qatar releasing hostages. We've also, had hostages say, please stop bombing Gaza indiscriminately. You may kill some of these fucking hostages. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Maybe suggest some diplomatic routes to secure the release of the hostages.
No.
And yes, maybe you may need to have some conditions on releasing hostages, i.e. releasing the thousands of people that are held in administrative detention in Palestine, including women and children.
Yeah.
Okay. People being held without charge, thanks to the Israeli states cracking down on Palestinian people. I don't know. Mr. Larson also echoed the sentiments of Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who released a statement that included the strongest wording yet in relation to the limits of the conflict. The way Israel chooses to defend itself matters. We can confirm Israel's right to defend itself while also saying that the way it does so matters. And this is a wonderful line Penny Wong's clearly a very big fan of. They love wheeling this out.
They can really defend themselves, but it matters how they defend themselves. How does it matter? Because if you actually don't want there to be any consequences for how they defend themselves.
Yes.
Exactly how does it matter? Makes you feel a bit more guilty?
Yes. Makes us feel bad. Makes us look bad. So if they could just keep a lid on the civilian deaths and the killing children, that'd be actually really great for us. Opposition leader Peter Dutton has criticised the government for abstaining from that vote. He said that the Prime Minister was weak for doing so, so he wasn't happy with abstaining. Greens leader Adam Bandt also criticised the government's UN vote abstention, but for different principles than Mr. Dutton.
Unity ticket, LNP Greens team up.
The no-alition.
Yeah.
Except Dutton actually wanted to vote yes and we wanted him to vote.
Right.
No, Dutton wanted him to vote no and we wanted him to vote yes. They absolutely should have voted yes. I mean, look, there's an argument that, it did vote overwhelmingly. It did get apart because it's a non-binding resolution. It doesn't do anything. Adam Bandt said the government should have voted in favour of a ceasefire. Mr. Bandt said in a statement, Labor cannot wash its hands of what happens now. By failing to back a ceasefire and continuing to improve defence exports to Israel, which is also what we're doing, Labor shares responsibility for the unfolding catastrophe in Gaza. Absolutely correct. And once again, I am very grateful that there is someone at the federal level in a party that is not consumed with bloodlust and actually means what they say and is prepared to stick their neck out and say, we need to stop killing people right now. That's the only moral position to take. Yeah. And the idea that this violence can continue with no further repercussions is disgusting. I don't know how these people live with themselves. It's fucking horrific. We also had 6 former Australian Prime Ministers, okay, all the living ones except for one, Paul Keating, who, I got to say, go off king.
Yeah.
They released a big old statement. Have you read the statement?
I haven't read the statement. I saw that Paul Keating didn't sign it. I was like, okay, good on you, Paul. And then I moved on.
Why don't you care what John Howard, Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard, Tony Abbott, Malcolm Turnbull and Scott Morrison think?
Believe it or not, I do not give a shit.
6 former prime ministers made unprecedented intervention in the Israel-Hamas conflict, issuing a joint statement after declaring there is no more tenaciously evil race hatred than anti-Semitism. I guess. Why
is that the most tenaciously evil race hatred? Like, isn't all race hatred
all the race hatreds are
evil?
really bad, guys. They're really bad. Why bother ranking them?
That's a fucking weird thing to say.
I mean, acknowledging the history, the particular history of anti-Semitic violence is just truth.
It's very tenacious. I guess that's
fine.
true.
Tenacious, I guess. But yes, this ranking, and we saw this in the UK during the anti-Semitism scandal that sort of consumed the Labour Party when Jeremy Corbyn was the leader. Lots of reports saying that there is this hierarchy of racisms within the party. Like anti-Semitism is the worst one. Islamophobia, not so much. No important. Like just pointless. I mean, the letter is mainly focused on social cohesion here in Australia. I mean, like we should all get along, and anti-Semitism is bad, and Islamophobia is bad, and we can't let this conflict over here divide us here.
Okay,
but there are also some pretty big disclaimers. We believe we speak for the vast majority of Australians of all faiths and of none when we say we stand in solidarity with Jewish Australians at this time. I mean...
Okay.
Likewise, we stand too with the Australian Palestinian community whose families are dying and suffering in this terrible conflict. They're dying. They're not being killed. They're just dying. It's kind of weird. It's this weird thing that sort of happened. They too deserve our love and support. Thanks, Scott.
What? Yeah, like what does that mean? Why bother?
It then goes on to say that they condemn the Hamas atrocities, of course. They say that Hamas want Israel to invade and bomb Gaza. So it's
okay, sure.
So it's like, well, whether that's true or not. I mean, you could foresee a violent military response from Israel after those attacks. I think Hamas could easily foresee that. Whether they want that to happen, whether they want Palestinians to die, is a big claim.
But
more importantly, if you actually believe that, then you should call for a ceasefire because then you're doing exactly what Hamas wants to do. Right?
That's a really fucking good point.
On the battlefield in Israel and Gaza, we do not presume to give strategic advice to Israel. Strategic advice being stop killing innocent kids, maybe. But the legitimate object of defeating Hamas must be accompanied by support and protection for the civilian population of Gaza. Israel promises it will do all it can to avoid civilian casualties. We urge it to do so with all of its humanity and skill.
Ah, it's such a humanitarian and skillful nation. It will surely do everything it can to avoid impacting civilians, to avoid civilian casualties.
Yeah, why wouldn't you think that? Look at it. Point me to one piece of evidence that the Israel military isn't using all its humanity and skill.
I can't think of any. I don't know. It's probably just Hamas propaganda, if so.
I know, it's not like Gillard and Rudd are supposed to be some incredible heroes of progressivism. We know this. But what the fuck are they thinking? Co-signing any statement on this conflict alongside the racist fuckhead dinosaurs of Howard and Abbott and Morrison.
This is your brain on major party politics, though. Like, it truly is. This is just how they're like, you know what I can do? Just put politics aside and both sides it while people are being fucking murdered.
Not even really both sides. I mean, at this point, if you're not calling on Israel to enact a ceasefire, you are, and it's very explicitly in that letter, like, we're on board Israel and the Jewish. What we are equating them with the Jewish people, right? We're standing in support with Jewish people. Therefore, we pretty much give Israel carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they want. And we might make some very weak noises about humanitarian law and urging them to show restraint, but we don't actually mean any of that. If any of that's put to the test, then we don't.
Meanwhile, standing in solidarity with the Jewish community, it has been incredible to see so many, protests from Jewish groups like, is it Loud Jew Collective that did the protest at Richard Marles' office, the defense minister, did a sit-in basically. They were singing peace songs. They were, there in calling for a ceasefire in solidarity with Palestinian people and as Jewish people and allies. And they were violently dragged off by police from a Labor minister's office. I mean, yeah, like, and yet they will still try and paint, the government will still try and paint the narrative as you know, standing in solidarity with Palestine is being anti-Semitic, and they need to stand. The reason that they are supporting Israel's genocidal actions are because they don't want to be anti-Semitic.
Insane. I mean, yes, we've had Australian Jews for a ceasefire signed by Anthony Lowenstein. We can put the link of that in the show notes. If you happen to be Jewish and would like to join those calls, I encourage you to check that out. I mean, the remarkable, as you say, solidarity from Jewish people, anti-Zionist Jews particularly, who are critiquing this and sort of saying, not in our name. You do not get to wield the spectre of anti-Semitism in bad faith to endorse what is happening to Palestinian people right now. Incredible.
In the face of incredible and probably quite fucking like intergenerationally triggering violence, state violence that Jewish people are facing, saying, you know, we don't want, like, we as Jewish people recognize this for what it is. We recognize racism and ethnic cleansing, and not in our name. And then, being fucking beaten and targeted by police and state actors across the globe.
Yeah. And remember that most people are on our side here too. I mean, it's hard to sort of zero in on specific polling in Australia when it comes to the question of a ceasefire. YouGov's been doing polling in the UK. 75% of the public want a ceasefire. Okay. So you got the political class, you know, umming and ahhing, rigging their wrists, or full out, you know, endorsing Israel's attitude and actions right now, you know, giving full-throated support to that. Whereas the people of these populations across the West, certainly in the Arab world too, overwhelmingly supporting an end to what Israel is doing right now. So keep that in mind. And I think there was a poll, there's only like 40%, one essential poll, this is the only one that I could find, something like 40% of Australians believe that Israel's response has been proportionate. Okay. So that's 60% of people who do not agree with that. Which is interesting.
Because yet again, the political class is always quite a few steps behind the broader public. Like there's certainly, I would say, been a shift in recognition of Palestine and, you know, the plight of Palestinian people, and maybe a shift against the state of Israel after in recent years, you know, their actions are more transparently available for all to view, particularly online, you know, with the kind of prevalence of social media. And so, like, it's no surprise that public sentiment has shifted, but politicians are just fucking stuck in 10 years ago.
Yeah. Look, we need to sort of wrap it up. Again, this story will continue to develop, but there are actions that you can take. I emailed my MP, Daniel Molino from Labor, got a very pro forma response, a bullshit of like, I support Israel's right to defend itself, and but as a father, it's bad that Palestinian kids are dying.
As a father.
Wonderful stuff. But look, calling Penny Wong's office, I'm hearing that is happening a lot, right? And the pressure there is really quite full on. We'll put a list of actions that you can take, contacting MPs. Again, these are one of these few moments in which actually reaching out, contacting your local MPs, keeping that up pressure is working. Already we're seeing, you know, MPs like Tony Burke, who represents sort of Western Sydney community with lots of a large Muslim community, and lots of people are very concerned about this, you know, breaking ranks and talking publicly due to public pressure from his constituents and the actions of people across civil society saying, yeah, fuck this shit. This is insane. This is clearly wrong. It's so evident, and we have to resist the insane amount of propaganda that comes from our political and media classes that try to convince you of something that you can clearly see with your eyes and your ears, which is this is a genocide, and what is happening now has to stop.
Hello, welcome back to Shit Rentals with your boy, Purplepingers.
We've met Jordie Van Der Berg before, the TikToker, otherwise known as Purplepingers, shining a light on the unlivable.
The only thing this bathroom is inviting me to is an insane asylum from the 1920s.
I'm not a plumber, but I'm pretty sure this is meant to go somewhere. These tenants are paying for a pool on their lease, which used to have sewerage run straight into the pool.
Jordie Van Der Berg is a lawyer and the man behind the account Purplepingers, which you probably know from the shit rentals reviews. I know that next weekend, Jordie, you're going to be joining the lineup for this big rally for renters that's being organised by Rahu, the Rental and Housing Union, the Vic Greens and the Victorian Socialists. We wanted to have you on the show, just all us homeowners to get together to chat about how hard renting is.
Shut up, Emerald.
So thanks for joining us.
They're going to kill us after the revolution. Fuck, man. What are you doing?
Amazing.
This
Thanks
is
for
us
having
begging
me.
not to be guillotined, right?
Yeah.
Look, we all deserve it, so let's go. Go out with a bang.
Yeah. So you've been doing like video reviews of shitty rentals for some time, but only it was in September, right, that you decided to finally launch shitrentals.org, which is where tenants or prospective tenants presumably can go on and review agents and rentals, and kind of like an equivalent. I mean, there's a tenants blacklist that renters often end up on, might not even know that they end up on there. This is like a landlord or agent version of that. So yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that and just like how the videos started effectively.
Yeah.
I understand you started doing them in lockdown, right?
Yes.
Just from listings online?
Yeah, exactly. There was not much to do. So, and I was renting. So I was like, spending a lot of time looking at either rentals or like properties. And it was like, wow, the landscape's not great. And that was 3 years ago, and it has not gotten better.
Would you say it's gotten worse?
Yes.
It's got even worse, right?
Yeah.
Because there's sorry, Jordie.
I don't know. I was going to say, like, I used to do this, in the spare time, come across a property, be like, oh, that's funny. And it would be really shit. And then like a month later, I'd be like, all right, let's do it. Let's get off my bum and make this video. Now, if I don't do it like that same day or the next day, it's gone because, people
are that desperate. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because there's the experience of looking at a rental online going, oh, this place looks nice. Then you go to the inspection, you go, oh, it's a fucking dump.
Yeah.
But it's like the housing crisis is so bad and people are so desperate that landlords could just be like, here's the shithole that we're charging you $600
would you like
a week.
Exactly. We don't even have to hide it. I do have one of those ready to go for you guys, by the way. Here's the pictures. Oh, actually, you know what? To be fair,
let's say.
Should we
save it as a treat?
Yeah, let's do it.
The pictures are bad.
Treat. Well, they're not great, but they're not as bad as it actually is. But
okay, all right. So it's shit, but not that shit. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Is it? Did you start out only doing were you just doing ones in Melbourne, or I thought there was also like a shit rentals of Sydney? Thing?
Yeah. So there actually was a shit rentals of Sydney. That was a thing, and it just disappeared. I don't know why. But so I was like I was making like stupid rental skits like about agencies and agents just being assholes. And I was like, you know what, let's go. Let's also do this for Melbourne. And then the shit rentals of Sydney thing just disappeared. It's like, what's going on? So then I started doing kind of all over Australia.
Found the body of whoever used to run shit rentals
no one knows
of
who
Sydney?
It is. I would love to know if anyone knows.
Concerning.
He had an accent, so and I can't remember which accent it was, but
okay, yeah. Some landlord called them in for deportation or something. Favor. Who knows?
Exactly.
So you've been doing it for years, but I feel like it really, these videos kind of ramped up around the start of this year, right? Was there a particular reason that you started doing, focusing on it more?
Yeah. So it kind of turned into. I wanted to do, like, people would send me their stories as renters, and I wanted to do like some advocacy for them. So I wanted to, go tell their story because, I'm a straight white man who owns a house, so I can do that. And unfortunately, most of the time they can't. So, be people in certain situations that have either just left a rental or have just secured a rental, and in that kind of transition process of moving. So it's like the number of people who can tell their story safely on my platform is very little without retaliation. So, and just the amount of people that were reaching out to me was like too much. There was so many people just reaching out all the time. So I was like, it's not really fair that these people have to rely on me to tell their story, that you should be able to tell your story without fear of retaliation.
Yeah.
So that's why the website started, pretty much.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's really cool to see when I saw someone had finally done this website, because I think maybe there have been some attempts over the years. This has been a dream of like many tenants advocacy groups and of the Greens as well. I don't know if you know this, but Jono Sriranganathan up here in Brisbane, a Greens councillor, has been talking about this for ages. Back in 2018, he actually did this thing where he was like, I'm going to start using my 9,000 strong email list that I have as a councillor to name and shame bad landlords and real estate agents in Brisbane, and did kind of a media piece about it and an article about it, and was talking about, the purpose of this is to acknowledging that there's this huge power differential between tenants and landlords. And sure, there are, mechanisms in theory and in the law for tenants to ask for repairs or to challenge something in court or to go after a landlord. But in reality, the system's totally skewed in the landlord's favour. And sure, retaliatory evictions might be, banned in law, but everyone knows they happen.
Still on. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd also throw in the example of Tom Cashman, who's a mate of mine, comedian. Remember, he did that post a little while ago on TikTok. In which,
the reference one.
Yeah, references, right? He was sent an email from a landlord, a real estate agent saying, the landlord would like to have your references in order for you to rent this property. And Tom simply replied, okay, can I please send the landlord's references as well to make sure that they're a good landlord and that I, as a human being who happens to be in this relationship, can also scope out the landlord's background? And he was told no. And that went massively viral, because it's such a clear illustration of the fucking feudal relationship between property owners and other human beings who need houses to live, needing to suck their genitals in order to survive,
if you will. But then, and he was denied rentals after that, because it's like, that's not even that's nothing that he did. Absolutely, he's like, I'm going to make a little joke here. Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. It's like, well, don't really like you. You asked for something. Like, piss off.
Well, exactly. And like it's like, what power does a renter actually have in that situation? They can make a little joke. They can, I guess worst case scenario, a renter can like damage your property or something like that. They can not pay rent. Landlords have the power to make you homeless.
Exactly.
Like, that is just a fundamental power difference that I feel only in the last, maybe year or so is starting to actually be recognized in this country.
And like, even then, like, by a select few, I think. Like, not like it's a human right, and we've just commodified it, and it's like there's the protections that exist aren't enforced, so like it doesn't mean anything. Like sure. And like, if you look at the one of the most recent Labor conferences, they voted on whether or not housing is a human right. Like, bro, we signed that. That's done. Why are we? It's the year 2023 of our Lord. What are we doing here?
No, they're doing Labor. I mean, I'm curious. Obviously, we're a podcast that Tom and I are both Greens members. Like, a lot of the time we talk from a Greens perspective, and we very closely followed the debate over the Housing Australia Future Fund bill. And as you would know, the Greens really tried to run a big campaign for renters' rights off the back of that. Do you think, like, from your perspective as someone who is also from like a little bit of a different angle working on renters' rights, like, what impact did that parliamentary political debate have on that consciousness of renters and the work you were doing?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like, there's definitely been a shift, and I don't know what to attribute it to, but that was a fairly large and important conversation. But there's been a shift in opinion and like kind of the bravery of people to speak up about their renting situations. That's how I've realized it. That's the symptom for me. But also like a shift in anger towards landlords that used to not be, that wasn't so much of a thing. Like, I've always been angry at landlords, but not everyone has.
Yeah.
So there's definitely been, a shift in opinion, and I think it's a good one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's an explicit goal of Max Chandler-Mather, right, our housing spokesperson, who's, I think, we all agree has done a pretty fucking amazing job of politicizing this and fostering a level of class consciousness, right, amongst renters as a renting class. We talk about there are a third of Australians to recognize their place in this crazy system, to remind them that they have rights, and that at least through the political system and through some kind of organising and through funny and important, campaigns like shit rentals, we can stand up for ourselves. Again, I'm not a renter anymore, but they can stand up for themselves, and I can stand in solidarity. And again, do not put me up against the wall. And I'm one of the good ones. We've talked about this.
To be fair, none of us are landlords, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Hard no.
Well, I have a live-in landlord, but we're all good friends, and it's very reasonable rent. And you're fine, aren't you, Kevin?
Kevin's got fear in his eyes. Yeah. I'm curious to know, like, through doing these videos, what or even with the website, the real world impacts of that you've seen. I want to know whether these reviews could ultimately be used in, for example, like a tribunal case if a tenant were to take their landlord to court, or even just to, actually finally get something fixed and that sort of thing after it's been exposed.
Yeah, look, I've definitely seen both sides of the coin. I've seen, people use it to, after I've done a video, I've seen a bunch of listings get removed. That's quite common because, hey, maybe let's not list this. Also, I've started changing, like, the title of the video is no longer like shit rentals in whatever. It's, 170 Gilly Street, Fairfield, and then the agency's name. So, like, you're typing that in, that's what's going to come up. It's really great.
Love that.
Big fan.
So they take these properties off. You're actually reducing supply through this shit rentals approach.
Making
That's
the
what you're
housing
doing, Jordie.
process worse.
You're
exactly
fucking
what
evil
I'm
demon,
doing.
and you don't understand anything. How
Not
dare
allowing landlords to do the right thing and rent out their shitholes where you will
to provide
die.
housing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, sorry about that. But yeah, I do get that a lot as well. I'm reducing supply. Like, I'm reducing fucking death traps. I think that's fair. Like, so you can live there if you want. It's still, like, you could still do it.
You can
just
still
maybe
do it.
don't.
Yeah.
And like, I've, we've had conversations about what your rights are, who you can talk to, if you need representation at VCAT, all that kind of thing. Help people create timelines and supporting documentation for VCAT cases and that kind of thing. But I've also had landlords in their eviction notices reference videos of mine, like to evict people for unsafe. Like Section 91 ZL in Victoria is the unfit for habitation eviction thing.
Yeah.
And it's like these, and I've not raised issues that the landlord didn't know about. It's just
they're not actually doing an eviction because they're worried about the renter's safety and well-being.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you can't, that's not supporting documentation that is approved. You can't just reference a TikTok video. Like they literally reference a TikTok video. It's like required evidence attached. Yes. This link. Fuck off.
Yeah. I'm doing disclosure to my friends when I send them TikToks to watch. That's actually me disclosing evidence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can we maybe fill out the picture of these death traps a little bit, like just broadly? What's the most common things that you see? What's the worst shit that you've seen? How shit are these shit rentals? Can you paint that picture a little bit for us, John?
Yeah. I don't know where to start. Like, the big one's always mold. There's just mold everywhere.
Yeah.
That's always a thing, and it's never disclosed. Like, real estate agents legally have to disclose whether there's been a mold issue or a mold complaint that was structural 3 years prior. Never disclosed, and there's always one. Things like just raw asbestos, like exposed asbestos all over the place in
good
splashbacks and stuff like that. Just really good. Like, a really common one is the water heater will have exposed asbestos flue. So that's really fun. Don't leak that. Lot of lead paint that I just don't cover because it's like, that's lead. That's a thing as well. That's fine. And then we get to, like, in Victoria, you have to do mandatory gas and electrical safety checks every 2 years. And you have to provide the dates of the most recent one and whether or not there were any kind of things raised in the gas and electrical safety checks prior to the tenant moving in. They always say yes. They're never done. Also, there's like pretty significant fines for not doing that. And the Victorian government has never prosecuted a single landlord for
Wow.
not doing that. But yeah,
Cool.
like I went to one last week where the switchboard was like older than my grandparents, and like it was quite clearly had cotton cabling, and they did have a gas person come in and say, look, I'm really glad there's so many holes in this house because otherwise we'd have a CO2 poisoning kind of thing. So yeah, it's great. It's really good. And then there's the fun stuff like stained carpets and roofs falling in and stuff like that. That's more like that's more visually atrocious, but probably not going to kill you. There's the things that are going to kill you that you don't see as much that are less funny in a video, but they're the serious ones. Leaks everywhere.
They take money off for all that, right? Like they make it cheaper.
Absolutely.
They say, okay, factoring in all these like stains and stuff.
If anything, it makes it more expensive. It's just adds character. Really.
It's
a quaint
practically
family
heritage
home.
or should be heritage listed. So,
It's unique.
Yeah, they don't do lead paint like this anymore.
No, exactly. You can't buy this at the shops.
That's right. Yeah, one of a kind.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually thought that was interesting. Like, I think probably a lot of people who are maybe looking for a house or a rental would do well to watch your videos and know what to look for. Because when I was having a little watch over, some of the things I was like, I wouldn't have known to look for that. And particularly, the safety stuff. Like it's not, as you say, it's not as funny as the visual stuff a lot of the time or as the real estate agent editing tricks. I always when they've got the pictures online that are just kind of vaguely blurred. Like
what's going on there, buddy?
Yeah, you're like, what is that? What happened there? Quite bleak. But just going back to we're talking about the impact of doing this work, and there's positive and negative impacts, and just the huge backlash that you've got from from landlords and from agents, particularly after doing shitrentals.org. Like, what are the most kind of unhinged responses that you've received?
I had a real estate agent call me like 20 times over the course of a day. That was pretty funny.
Jesus.
And just lots of threats. Real estate agents, they don't get called out very often. So when they do, it's like pretty big for them. So then they come out like on the attack, and that's not a really it's not a really good way to approach anything. If you there's been plenty where I was like, let's work together. What are you going to do to fix this? And then I'll talk about removing the video, and we can make it work for the tenant. That's great. And then there's some that just straight out offered money to take a video down, and there's some that are like, I'm going to sue you.
Enough money?
The most I think has been $200, which
tell them they're dreaming.
Exactly. It's first of all, let's make that
the median
10,000.
rent is $560 a week.
Exactly.
So how about you start charging
a week's
that?
rent. Come
exactly.
on.
And then we'll consider it. But also, just before that, this has ruined my life. You've destroyed my business. Blah 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 blah.
Really struggling.
You can have $200 to take the video down. Has it really ruined your life?
Yeah.
Has it? No, absolutely not. Also, it wouldn't take money unless it was like $10,000, and then I'd give it to the tenant, because I think that's
that would be
we're
good.
all winning here.
Yeah, that would be a good outcome. I'm curious, do you reckon that agents or landlords are worse? I feel like there's a landlord thing where they will say, it's not me, it's the agent. I didn't know that all this was happening. It's not my fault. But ultimately it's like, you are a landlord, you are profiting from this and engaging in this, this arrangement.
Yeah. I personally don't think there's any point differentiating between them. Because they're the same. They're the gatekeepers for a human right, and they deny access based on whims that they have, or whether or not they're racist. That's the thing that happens. But there are definitely themes that certain that applies to agencies or agents rather than landlords, and that is agencies will often not tell landlords about repair issues because they just don't want to, two, forgot, three, exactly, can't be fucked. And then for some of their remuneration is based on how many reports and stuff they do. So they get, some of them have bonus practices in place based on those kind of things. So they're like, well, I'm not going to tell the landlord. The landlord wants to know if they're, generally speaking, the landlord wants to know if their property is falling apart.
Surely.
Tell them that. That is your job. And then there's also landlords where the agent will be like, gas and electrical safety checks are a legal requirement. You have to do this, otherwise you can get a fine. The landlord's like, how much is a fine? And the real estate agent's like, they've never actually handed one out. So
I was like, good to know. Thank you. Please
Cheers.
proceed.
Thank you very much. No
Can I bribe the government to not worry about the fine?
Yeah, well, yeah, and like a fine is just means it's legal for a rich person, and landlords are rich people. So like, make a jail time, and then I'll do a private prosecution because the government's not doing it. You can
make them have to live in the property.
Exactly.
That's their jail. That's their prison.
Exactly.
I mean, again, in no way do I want to foster any sympathy for these people either. But when I was researching my book too, you just come across these structural points too. Like I think the average real estate agent is looking after like something in the order of 80 or 100 properties at any one point, like a single person. And obviously you just can't do that. You can't look after everyone. That's impossible. And as we heard from that fucking psycho who called into Ben Fordham's call-in show, who has 283 properties that I assume he's using a whole bunch of agents to look after. But it's like, of course, no one person can be across all the needs of maintaining those 283 properties. You fucking psycho. So actually limiting how many fucking houses people can own might actually be a good idea.
Like, we have that for teachers. And like education is also a human right. So like, let's apply that to, and like that's the thing, we don't have corporate landlords in Australia to an extent that we do, to the same extent that we do in America. But if we did, you wouldn't have one arsehole who wears too much hair gel managing like 400 rental properties.
Yeah.
So like, I think corporate landlordism is a terrible thing, but also you'd probably get someone responding to an email if it did happen, because it is an entire corporation's job to do that rather than Kevin.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like, I think we've kind of had this conversation before about, the way that landlordism has transformed over time, and particularly with like the creation or, the real valorization of the mum and dad landlord ideal in Australia. And you probably as well would get the attack that it's like you are painting all landlords as evil, but what about the good? What about the good landlords, Jordie? Good landlords exist, don't they?
No such thing as a good landlord. No, absolutely not. It's like there's so many good critiques of landlords, from whether or not you're, capitalist, Marxist, you're Chairman Mao. No matter who you are, there are excellent critiques of landlords that I'm not going to add to because I don't need to. It's been done throughout history. You provide no value. You gatekeep a human right. You gatekeep housing. If we're going to be like, what about the good workers who built the property for someone to live in, and now you are just holding it over someone's head and raising the rent every 2 seconds? Like, no, there's no and then also there's no such thing as a good real estate agent. You're all class traders. That's just no. Yeah. Sorry.
All right, glad we cleared that up.
I'm sorry, Kevin. You can live here for free. I love you.
So just briefly before maybe
that is not legally binding. I want to make
not legally binding. Yeah, right. We have got, I don't know, that was recorded. You're a lawyer, is that? Yeah, Jordie, is that admissible in court?
I didn't see any acceptance of the offer. So
yes.
Okay, fine. So, okay.
I love how you like real estate agents are a class trader. Anyway, I'm a lawyer and I want a good answer.
I'm not practicing. To be fair, I'm admitted. Okay. I'm not practicing. So.
Okay. Good.
You're boycotting the legal system.
Exactly. Fuck them.
Very brave of you.
Thank you.
So what are the, is there a quick kind of like, I've seen you recently talking about, this is the problem and this is why we actually need legislative action from the state government, particularly in Victoria, because that's where you live and where you're focused. But what do you think are the reforms or the changes that immediately need to happen to at least improve this kind of predatory relationship, make things a little bit better for renters?
Yeah, I think there's lots of little wins that we could do. There's some big things that we need. Like we need long-term solutions and we need short-term like relief at the moment because people are struggling right now, and nothing offered by any of the governments is offering short-term relief for renters. So like there's lots of things. Like I could spend hours talking about solutions. We could, ban Airbnb. That's over 70% of Airbnbs were previously long-term rentals. So flood the market with them. That the only time we see any action on Airbnbs is we'll take Melbourne's the City of Melbourne's Lord Mayor Sally Capp used to be on the board of Nelson Alexander, which is the largest kind of privately owned real estate agency in Victoria. She's recently put caps on Airbnbs. Airbnbs previously long-term rentals. That's going to massively benefit Nelson Alexander as the largest provider of housing in Victoria.
True.
That's the only time we ever see any movement, when there's some gain for someone in some back pocket kind of move. It's disgusting. But things like that, absolutely, we could, put, like actually enforce, like the laws in Victoria are some of the best in Australia. Enforce them. And then and then we can start having a new conversation. Like we don't like, you're like, oh, we've got to change the laws. I'm like, we've got to change the laws. But actually that's going to do fucking nothing if you don't actually enforce the laws. Like fine a landlord, send them to jail, do all that kind of stuff. Just, as a test.
Just
like,
one,
pick one, make a really big example of it, and then see what happens. Like maybe we'll get some significant improvements.
Let's be judicious where we're choosing who the landlords are. Let's go off the really bad ones. So let's just remember that the nice ones in the Footscray area. Right?
We could just pick the closest one visually for me on my screen right now. Maybe start there.
But there's also a massive cultural change that needs to happen, rather than just small legislative and kind of local council amendments. Like Australia is built on stolen land. That's how it started. And the type of people who gained land or who stole that land would have never owned land in the UK where they came from. Even today, 70% of the land in the UK is owned by the aristocracy. So it's very much I'm going to grab something. It's now mine. And I'm going to hold on to that / increase that. And then we have, the migrant story to Australia, which is work really hard, own land, and you're successful. So we've got this massive baked in cultural issue of land ownership is part of our identity, even though it's all stolen. Yeah. And that's a problem that we need to address.
Yeah. And it's the only route to stability for a lot of people, because, you're not going to gain stability through actually working, because wages are shit and we live under a capitalist society.
Exactly. So. If your investment property makes more money than you do at work, why would you work? That's dumb.
Having said that, I assume at this rally for renters that you're going to be attending, and certainly the Victorian Greens at the last state election was going with a policy talking about things like rental caps and that kind of thing. I believe it was rental caps in line with inflation off the top of my head.
Yeah, 10% above inflation.
Which, can I just say, why the fuck should it be above inflation?
Exactly.
I don't know why anyone says that.
So they let their little bigs.
It's housing is the highest measured, highest weighted parcel when it comes to measuring inflation. So you would hello, this is dumb. This is it's a never-ending cycle. Exactly. To raise the interest rates because inflation is high because of rents being really high. Guys, let's just think about this for a second.
But if we cap rents, then landlords won't be incentivized to fix the property, and so they'll just let renters die, and that's renters' problem. So they should continue to pay.
Oh my god, I literally cannot believe it. Also, if you cap rents without whenever we're comparing studies and whatever, it's about capped rents, and it's like, well, it reduces supply, blah blah blah. We're comparing to countries that don't have, first of all, our same colonial history and cultural desire to steal land, but we're comparing countries that don't have the capital gains tax exemption and don't have negative gearing to an extent that we do in Australia, and don't have a bunch of kind of incentives, tax incentives to build, own, rent out investment properties. We're not comparing apples to apples. So that's bullshit. You can't show me a study where you're comparing a rent cap to another country, like in a country where there's capital gains tax concessions and negative gearing and first home buyer incentives and a bunch of other shit. You can't. Doesn't exist.
Such a good point. That's such a good point. We are fast running out of time, but we do want you to give us a little tour of a shit rental if you don't mind. You know, I'm thinking I might pick up an investment now that I'm a homeowner, looking for something to rent out. So
So here we have 170 Gillies Street in Fairfield. You can tell, like, it's not going to be fantastic if you look at the carpet, but the rest of the house looks pretty good if you look through the photos. Like, it's a fine house. There's missing a bunch of sheds in the floor plan. They used to have a floor plan and it keeps changing. So this is live. This is what's listed now. But the first time I checked, there were 4 sheds out the back. Then this morning
no sheds anymore.
There was just one, and now there's none. So I don't know what's happening with the sheds.
Mysterious.
If you look on Google Maps, like Google Earth, you can see there's a bunch of sheds in the garden, but they're being really funny about the sheds.
They're renting out the sheds separately, and they're disappearing as they're rented.
Exactly.
As a studio.
Okay, so it looks reasonable on the listing. Looks okay.
Yeah, so like it's fine.
Sure.
And like if you look, there's a picture in what looks like a living room. There's I think it's there's the first I don't know. One of the pictures has a living room. There is a living room in the in the floor plan.
Yep. Okay.
But there's in all the pictures, if you have a look at the ceiling looks pretty good.
Yeah, looks fine.
Looks like it's doing its job.
Yeah.
But then if you look at the tenant who just moved out a couple days ago, who sent these photos in, and you look at, let's go,
living
room.
Wait, so, okay. When are those photos from, do you think? The ones on the listing?
Usually the last time the property was sold. So that's often like over 10 years ago.
So we're looking at the roof here, and the roof is exposed, or it's just got wooden beams?
Yeah, there's like beams that seem to have
it was like sagging pretty tremendously, and I guess they did that.
They've nailed beams, just strips of wood onto the ceiling to try and hold it up. And like the skirting board is basically all ripped away. There's like a gap where the skirting board was that goes into the roof cavity, I suppose.
Oh God.
So that's quite terrifying.
Halloween movie or something.
Yeah. And it's just the paint is all peeling away. It looks like this roof could fall on you at any moment, and whatever's living up there would also fall on you too.
Exactly. And this is what it looks like now. So
burn this carpet. You're not a fan of this carpet? That does not look flat either. That really looks like it's a little bit lumpy.
A mysterious patch.
Oh.
So the guy was moving out and had he says he thinks the cleaner was Russian, but he said in broken English that the carpet needs to be vanquished, was his words. Vanquished.
Oh no. The carpet needs an exorcism.
Exactly.
Oh,
there's there's a hole in the wall. What's that from? That hole in the wall?
I think that's the handle of the door. Like there's no doorstop.
No,
Right.
okay, classic.
Yeah.
How much money am I paying for this wonderful property, Jordie? What
600 and something?
$610 per week.
More cracks in the wall. That looks like the roof is about to fall. Oh,
that is on the wall. That is not on the ceiling. That is a vent somewhere that doesn't really lead to anything. It's just a thing.
Just a random vent.
Not closed properly. You can just if you slam the door too hard, it'll open.
Place is terrifying. Okay, we're going into the laundry. All right, we've got more peeling paint, clearly water damage.
Yeah, but just also nothing like the photos. Not at all.
Do you think that they're hoping that either people are so desperate that they apply for it sight unseen, or that they rock up to the inspection and there are a million other people and they're just pressured into
they know someone will take it, and they know they're going to waste most people's time by listing this place, but someone will accept it. So the people's time that they waste, they don't give a shit about quite clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Oh, what a depressing state of affairs.
How good.
Well, but that just shows how the important work that Ship Rentals is doing. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And the kind of, yes, and the reaction to it, the response from the landed gentry is very encouraging because clearly it matters. And thank God there are people such as yourself, Purplepingers, and the people who submit to shiprentals.org to hold these people to account, God damn it. It's a temporary approach to alleviate the horrors of the housing crisis. But yes, we need long-term solutions, as you say, and temporary relief. If you want to join Purplepingers and the Victorian Greens and Rahu, if you're in Melbourne on Saturday, November the 11th at 1 p.m. on the corner of Smith and Gertrude Streets, that's when the rally for renters is happening. We'll put the link to the Facebook event in the show notes if people want to come along. And people can submit, right? People can always get in touch with you and submit their shitty rentals, right, Jordie?
Anytime. Absolutely.
Sick. Well, I guess you should probably go. Aren't you about to get married or something?
Getting married tomorrow, Bella. Please stop eating my computer screen.
Is that your fiance's eating your computer screen?
No,
Bella?
that is my cat, one of 3 cats.
Oh, sorry. Right.
Yeah, also the one who was vomiting in the back. Just
That was your fiance as well?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Would you believe? No, we're getting married
She's
tomorrow,
got cold
so
feet.
really
She's
excited.
She's not excited about this marriage.
Vomiting, eating computer screen. She's not ready.
Really concerning. It's a stressful time. Thank you so much for making
Exactly.
time for us before, what I understand will probably be one of the biggest days of your life. So
Damn right. Yeah, no, big fan. So excellent.
Cheers for that.
Sick.
Thanks, Jordie.
All right, enjoy.
See ya. Thanks for having me.
The living room and dining rooms with a lovely flow for entertaining.
And looks like a loose nail.
1 out of 25 ain't bad. Your beautiful kitchen, Ned, just as you remember it.
Was that toilet always next to the refrigerator?
Ned, you ever try lugging a toilet up a flight of stairs?
Lisa and I built your room.
But I don't like this clown.
I wouldn't take it down if I were you. It's a load-bearing poster.
Now, this is the room with electricity, but it has too much electricity. So, I don't know, you might want to wear a hat.
Uh-huh. Floor feels a little gritty here.
Yeah, we ran out of floorboards there, so we painted the dirt. Pretty clever.
Oh, something is definitely wrong with this hallway.
Come on in! It's your master bedroom! Ow, my nose!
Yes, if you're in Melbourne, get along to that rally next weekend, 1 p.m. Saturday, November the 11th at the corner of Smith and Gertrude Streets. Don't know where that is. Must be a Melbourne thing. But go stand up for renters. Other call to action this week, as we said in the segment just before, to stand in solidarity with Palestinian people and to try to push for a ceasefire. Contact your senator, contact Penny Wong's office, contact your federal MP. Other things you can do are, get involved in the boycotts that the BDS movement are calling for. Some of the big ones, SodaStream, Siemens, Puma, HP. The other big ones that, particularly in relation to their support for the State of Israel's actions in this current war on Gaza, Domino's, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, and Hungry Jack's.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are multiple rallies and public meetings still happening on quite a regular basis. So if you can keep an eye on what's happening in your city or town and go to a rally and show up in solidarity and make it clearer and clearer to the political class that they can't continue to support Israel's, ethnic cleansing and violence in Gaza without consequence.
Mm. Yes, and God, yes, love and solidarity to everyone who has already done that. We mentioned the Loud Jewish Collective taking those actions, but I mean, and the smearing of hundreds of thousands of people taking to the streets to stand in solidarity. Palestine, like the idea, the discourse in the UK is just like, this is all pro Hamas rallies. Like, it's just they're losing that argument, and the more regularly those rallies are kept up and people turn out for it, like that just those critiques will wither away, and they'll be exposed for what they are, which is very, very bad faith arguments.
Yeah. Just quickly on a slightly lighter note as well, if you're in Manjin, Brisbane, the council campaigns are obviously well underway in Queensland, and there's a comedy night fundraiser to kick the LNP out of Holland Park ward on Wednesday the 22nd of November at the Holland Park Sports Club with Matt Ford, Ting Lim and Mandy Nolan. Tickets are $25 concession or $30 full price, and we'll put the link in the show notes. That'll be a fun one to get along and, replace the current LNP councillor with a brand new First Nations man, Greens candidate. Fantastic candidate.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We love you. Go to seriousdangerpod.com for all your serious danger needs, and we will catch you soon. We're getting close to 100 episodes.
It's coming. Maybe next week we will have a little special announcement about something that we've been working on as well. Here's me doing a little teaser, a little sizzle. Sizzle.
Sizzle. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Serious danger to Australia.